From the broadcast center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm Nicholas Poitras, and this is your 2:30 news. The British Columbia government has announced that it will be fining BC ferries for missed sailings due to crew shortages. The fine was announced during question period in the BC legislature Tuesday morning. In August, it was revealed that about 4 in 10 canceled sailings last fiscal year were the result of the ferry service's staffing woes, according to a company report. The penalties will be established in the spring before next summer's busy sailing season. It was not revealed how much those penalties will be. Mourners will be gathering in Langley for a regimental funeral procession to honor the RCMP officer who was killed in the line of duty last month. Constable Rick O'Brien was fatally shot while executing a search warrant in Coquitlam on the morning of September 22nd. Attendance at the funeral services will be limited to family, first responders, officials, and invited guests. But members of the public who want to pay their respects are being invited to line the streets and observe for the procession at the 2 p.m. service at the Langley Events Center. Canadian National Railway Corporation is experiencing a network-wide system failure that has affected rail corridors and forced the Toronto area commuter trains to be halted. In an online statement, Ontario's Go Transit and Metrolinx said that there was a CN network-wide system failure that is affecting all of our rail corridors. Via Rail Canada also said that some trains entering and departing Toronto's Union Station are experiencing delays due to the CN system failure. Metrolinx and CN are working together to solve the issue. A second case of E. coli was found at a Calgary daycare, but officials says there's no link to an outbreak. Another child at Calgary's daycare has tested positive for Shiga toxin-producing E. coli, a month after an outbreak that affected hundreds of numerous of daycare's centers started. Some parents at Fueling Brains Academy, Bridgeland, received a letter on Monday from Dr. Franco Rizzuti, Alberta Health Services Chief Medical Officer for Calgary, to inform them about the case and suggest that they seek medical care and testing if their child had any symptoms since September 22nd. The letter says there is no evidence that the infection has required at the child care facility or that there is a link to the outbreak that has affected 19 daycares, including the Bridgeland facility. The Kika Bulgarian folklore group began as a way of expressing one identities among other Bulgarians in Vancouver, as well as sharing the culture of these dances with anyone wishing to participate. Our reporter Anthony Atanasov has more on how Bulgarian folk dancing evokes a sense of togetherness.
Dancing is a form of expression and can bring people together. This is what Vanya Alexieva had in mind when she helped form the Kitka Bulgarian folklore group in Vancouver. For Vanya, dancing is closely linked to identity, and the Kitka group wants to continue sharing the Bulgarian sentiment of unity with other people in a world that is growing more divided.
International folk dance groups, which are Canadian people that are dancing Bulgarian dances. So the sense of community in just dancing, it's just immense.
The Kitka group performed at the Kanatitsa Festival in Burnaby last week, drawing Bulgarians and non-Bulgarians alike who came to share a moment of Bulgarian tradition. The group will be traveling to Ottawa on October 12th. This is Anthony Atanasov with 1680 The Crow.
For more coverage on this story, stay tuned for our special For the Record. Donald Trump continues insisting there was no fraud on day 2 of his civil trial as prosecutors continued to build their case that he inflated his worth.
Donald Trump sat at the defense table, flanked by his lawyers, while son Eric Trump, a co-defendant, sat in the first row. During a break, the former president commented on the case.
I think it's going very well.
On the stand, an accountant who prepared the financial statements for years testified that Trump's company supplied the numbers. Trump says there were disclaimers on those statements saying that they weren't audited.
There can't be fraud when you've told institutions to do their own work.
Donald Trump sat at the defense table, flanked by his lawyers, while son Eric Trump, a co-defendant, sat in the first row. During a break, the former president commented on the case.
I think it's going.
And that is your news for this half hour. I'm Nicholas Poitras, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikka-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikka-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
I grew up here. I made friends here. I came here, to work, to learn more about my family's legacy. I learned my language here. This is home. The Punjabi market is the oldest, like, little India in North America. In 2008, after the global financial crisis, specifically with the Punjabi market, people were just looking for opportunities. So that's why you saw a lot of the commerce flee from here into Surrey. But in 2017, I lost my dad. And after I lost my dad, I did a lot of soul searching, thinking about him. I was grieving. You know, my dad was sick for a very long time. And I don't know, for some reason I made this connection between watching him deteriorate and watching the market deteriorate. And in my dad's case, I wasn't able to intervene, right? His story was written. He passed away in 2017. But with the market, I had the option to intervene. I think that there wasn't a singular inspiration. I don't think that you could say that. It was just it was a collection of experiences that sort of just led me in that direction. And I think I sort of stumbled into it, to be honest. It was just a collection of individuals who'd been talking, you know, for a few months about what the future of the market was. When I was thinking about, hey, what are we going to do with the Punjabi market? I decided to go on Instagram. I saw this like illustration of the street sign. It had like a pink and orange background, and it was stylized in this like squiggly line. And I thought it was really cool. So what I decided to do, like at midnight, was DM the person and be like, hey, I really like your artwork. That person was Jag Negra.
I joined in 2019. I met Gulzar Nanda, who's our current chair, and he had introduced me to the idea of like helping revitalize and beautify Punjabi market because there hadn't been a lot of investment in the area in so long. So there was a group of volunteers that were coming together to work on this like neighborhood, right? So as soon as he started telling me about it, I got really excited, and right away I was like, yes, I want to be involved. I think when we first started, there was a bit of a challenge because like there have been other community groups who've tried to revitalize the market. Politicians come around every year during election cycles, right, to try to they come for photo ops sometimes, right? There's been lots of empty promises. There's been lots of broken promises. So there was a little bit of hesitation and like disbelief, I guess, in the work we were trying to do. But I think as we're making, I think the physical changes is what helps them see that we are doing something, right? For me, like it kind of pulls at my heartstrings because I remember, like I grew up in Maple Ridge, which is about 45 minutes away from here, and we would come like once a year to do a big shopping day. We'd follow my parents, my aunts, like from shop to shop. We'd come here to Himalaya restaurant for lunch, chole bhature every time. And those memories have like been seared into my mind. And to be able to give back to this neighborhood, that meant so much to me. And now coming here with my two young children who are 2 and 4, and having them know what Punjabi market is and hopefully have them grow with it, I think that's so beautiful.
Well, as I said, there was none of the Indian business. So the people coming from even Prince George, Kamloops, William Lake, when there was a long weekend holidays, they were doing to do the business in the Punjabi market.
Having a store on Main Street, you can brag about it, honestly. And like having, like in 90s when I opened this store, having a store, a big store like this, it was really great to have something on Main Street. And in those days though, no, it was a very, very great thing to have something.
ਤਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਮਾਰਕੀਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਸਾਈਨ ਲੱਗੇ, ਬਾਈਲਿੰਗੁਅਲ ਸਾਈਨ ਲੱਗੇ ਆ ਬਾਹਰ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਦੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਮਾਰਕੀਟ ਸਾਈਨ ਲੱਗੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ
God, there are lots of memories. I remember the first parade when we saw there more than 100,000 people walking by the street. Wow, it was packed. Like you can't even walk around there. There were so many people. That was such a big community we have here, though. And that was a show of strength as well for the community, I guess. And we were very proud to be, to be part of that event.
We celebrated the 25th of anniversary in 1995. At that time, most of the shops were run by the Indo-Canadian community. I know at that time there are 400 Indo-Canadian community employees were working in the market, and we doing about $70 million business.
For the first 10, 12 years, it was just solid up. And then it got steady for a little while. And then the Surrey came in existence. And then now the more people were going and living in Surrey because that was more affordable though.
I think there's like this misconception that, hey, everybody from Vancouver that's South Asian moved to Surrey or they moved to Burnaby. But the census data doesn't show that. The census data shows that there have never been as many South Asians as there are now in all of the Lower Mainland. And that includes Vancouver.
What we can do to help support those businesses is create what we call placemaking. So making a destination, making a place that people want to go, and centering Punjabi market as a real locus for South Asian culture in the city of Vancouver.
Yeah, we advocate for this neighborhood a lot. We meet regularly with the city of Vancouver. We have brought a lot of public art initiatives here, and we're kind of revitalizing it from an arts and culture-based lens, right? And trying to help these mom and pop shops that have been here, help them grow, help attract new businesses, new young entrepreneurs to come here and invest here. And the last thing we want is for it to get completely gentrified and forgotten and erased, because so much of our history, that's what tends to happen, especially in Vancouver. So we want to hold on to the legacy here.
And then looking at things like that we could immediately improve as a city, things like street furniture, adding electrical sockets to lamp standards so we could do, string up lights and stuff like that. And then there's more ambitious things like a gate that's long been talked about over Main Street to actually kind of really signify things like street beautification and murals and stuff, and we've seen the actualization of the murals. And strategies to bring back some of those businesses. So when we talk about what people make living heritage, it's the shops, it's the people who use those shops, it's the people who hang out and make the community, and it's not just a bunch of old buildings.
How many people have walked these streets and forged connections that are undying? They to this day still endure. I think that's probably the legacy of this place, is that it brought us together from all over the western seaboard of North America.
I guess being able to provide like a home away from home for so many newcomers is really important. Long term, I want this to be like such a lively street, the way it was when I was a kid, right? Like you couldn't find parking when I was a kid and we'd come here. I want that kind of like liveliness here again.
But all I can say that is stay positive and just help us out and show us the way and we will follow you basically. And they are leading us very well.
Well, I think the Gulzar Nanda's organization is doing their best try to keep the market up. I think it would survive.
Yeah, it feels incredible. It's like, as a visual artist, I never thought I would be here. Like I was like making art, right? But to see the impact we're having, like I don't think I notice it or think about it day to day, and I think that'll come maybe in a few years when I look back and see like here's what we accomplished. But I think every year like I can look back at the changes we've made and the initiatives we've brought here, and I feel really proud of it, right? Like it's really cool to be playing a part in Punjabi market's overall story and history, and like in 50 years people will talk about the work we did. I think that's really, really cool.
When South Asians first migrated here, they started off as laborers in factories, farms. What the Punjabi market really showed the Western world was that the South Asian person can be an entrepreneur. Their value isn't just in their hands, And there was still a lot of racism, right? But seeing our community thrive here, people should have paused and been like, wow, these South Asians, people that we might not think as our equals, they're doing really well. And I think that's really the road through which we get to where we are now. We've left an undeniable mark on Canada, and I feel like it started almost here.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
This is your 3 o'clock news. Okay. This is your 3 o'clock news on 1680 The Crow. I'm Agila Swanova. Metro Vancouver is busy with hundreds of eagles that are converting to BC this fall. Our reporter Chris Koo found out that the Wildfire Rescue Center states that around 200 eagles are brought every year to the rescue operation.
According to Rob Hope from All Orphaned Wildlife Rehabilitation, wildlife animals including eagles are rehabbed until they're fully recovered. With the increasing number of eagles coming to the center annually, it's a growing concern for the center. According to Rob Hope from All Orphaned Wildlife Rehabilitation, wildlife animals including eagles are rehabbed until they're fully recovered. With the increasing number of eagles coming to the center annually, it's a growing concern for the center since food and medical supplies are more in demand than ever. Rob explains what ultimately led the eagles to come to the Orphaned Wildlife Society.
Yeah, so in the fall and winter, it'll be lead poisonings, electrocutions, starvation, Then in sort of like the February, March through to April, May will be the nesting season where they'll be fighting.
According to the research of the Rocky Mountain Eagle Research Foundation, the peak migration period for the eagles lasts from mid-March to the end of April. Chris Coos, 1680 The Crow.
Chris is live today with us. Chris, hello.
Hi, Ogi.
Hi. Chris, has there been an increase of eagles coming to the Wildfire Rescue Center lately?
So it is said that hundreds of eagles are set to converge on BC. However, according to Rob Hope from Orphan Wildlife Rehabilitation Society, people will see a spike of eagles probably in another 3 or 4 weeks when the salmon starts wrapping up up north. And since eagles' primary food source is salmon, they will also push their way in there.
What are the most common reasons to eagles coming to the center?
Yeah, so there are many reasons such as getting hit by vehicles, unusual infection, or whatever they were touching or eating. But during fall and winter, the most common case for eagles coming to the rehab center is lead poisoning and starvation. And then beginning on February to May, nest fighting is also a big issue for eagles.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
The BC government is going to penalize BC Ferries when it cancels core service sailing due to the staffing shortage after summer travel chaos for passengers. The details of the plan to improve the ferry services will be confirmed next spring, said the Minister of Transportation, Rob Fleming. Short-staffed and mechanical issues led to the frustration for travelers last summer. Rob Fleming says the province has reviewed its contract for another 4 years with BC Ferry Services. The new agreement adds more than 14,000 round-trip sailing each year as core services. Smaller ferries and ferries-dependent communities will benefit from the improved services. Community and the Kitka Bulgarian folklore group began as a way of expressing one's identity among other Bulgarians in Vancouver, as well as sharing the culture of these dances with another fishing to participate. Our reporter Anthony Atanasov has more on how Bulgarian folklore dancing invokes a sense of togetherness.
Dancing is a form of expression and can bring people together. This is what Vanya Alexieva had in mind when she helped form the Kitka Bulgarian folklore group in Vancouver. For Vanya, dancing is closely linked to identity, and the Kitka group wants to continue sharing the Bulgarian sentiment of unity with other people in a world that is growing more divided.
International folk dance groups, which are Canadian people that dancing Bulgarian dances. So the sense of community in just dancing, it's just immense.
The Kitka group performed at the Kanatitsa Festival in Burnaby last week, drawing Bulgarians and non-Bulgarians alike who came to share a moment of Bulgarian tradition. The group will be traveling to Ottawa on October 12th. This is Anthony Atanasov with 1680 The Crow.
The Port Coquitlam Trailblazers have made franchise history this weekend by achieving their first win ever. Our reporter Madison Buckingham spoke with the head coach Greg Ross to discuss what he thinks brought to the win.
Before Friday night, the Port Coquitlam Trailblazers were the only team in the Pacific Junior Hockey League to have not won a game yet this season. Head coach Greg Ross says he saw it come together in the third period. He explained that his team hadn't been able to step up for those last 20 minutes in previous games. Despite struggling to become a competitive team within the league, Ross explained that he's seen major improvements.
We're finally starting to just make mistakes, not play poorly, and in a game like that on Friday, it was something where the mistakes we made, we were able to kind of find our way out of them. So.
Ross says that his team will be using this milestone as ammunition to continue their success. Madison Buckingham, 1680 The Crow.
Premier David Eby says it's outrageous. Conservative Party leader John Rostad would use his first question in the legislature to criticize the province's sexual orientation gender identity program in schools. AB says making a small group of kids feel less safe in their communities is not welcome. Rastad had asked the new Democrat government to replace the program, which sparked protests and counter-protests across the country. He says parents are concerned about the children's well-being.
And when he sat on this side of the House, he supported those same policies, Honourable Chair. It is outrageous that he would stand here and do this. He sees political advantage in picking on kids and families and teachers and schools who are just trying to do their best for kids who are at risk of suicide, Honourable Chair. Shame on him. Choose another question.
The BC ombudsperson analyzed the government's response to wildfire and severe flooding in 2021 and the fairness in which it delivered assistance programs. BC's ombudsperson Jay Walkie ombudsperson says the 18-month investigation found there is a confusing and unclear communication about programs, unreasonable delays in providing support, and a lack of flexibility over how supports are delivered.
British Columbia urgently needs a comprehensive forward-looking plan for long-term displacement. As I expect some of you know, today the government has introduced legislation that proposes to make broad changes to how the province responds to emergencies. But as with any legislation, we know it's going to take months or even years to see change on the ground.
Another child at a Calgary daycare has tested positive for E. coli. Hundreds of kids and numerous daycares has infected with E. coli for the past month. Last night, some parents at Bridgeland Preschool received a letter informing them about the case. The letter says there is no evidence that the infection was obtained at the childcare facility, or that there is a link to the outbreak that has affected 19 daycares. The New York judge presiding over Donald Trump's civil fraud trial imposed a gag rule after the former U.S. president minimized a key court employee. Reporter Julia Walker was at the courthouse today.
The gag order applies to all parties and pertains only to verbal attacks on court staff. It came after Donald Trump recirculated a disparaging social media post about Allison Greenfield, the judge's law clerk, and later took it down. Without naming Trump, the judge said a defendant in the case posted a disparaging, untrue, and personally identifying post about a member of my staff. The post included a photo of Greenfield with Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer at a campaign event. Trump, the Republican presidential frontrunner, has repeatedly cast the lawsuit and trial as a political attack. At court in Manhattan, I'm Julie Walker.
John Herdman takes in his first game in charge of Toronto FC on Wednesday, when the cellar-dwelling MLS team plays at the Charlotte FS. Herdman will watch from the above from the next two games as intern coach Terry Dunfield runs the show from the sidelines. But Dunfield says while Herdman is hands-off for the first time being, his presence is being felt.
But what it's felt like is we're going into a fight tomorrow against Charlotte, and I've got a top crew behind me, and I feel like the team feels that as well. Training today, the boys were flying. There was so much energy and just a great buzz around the facility.
The Toronto Blue Jays kick off their American League wildcard playoff series. This was your 3 o'clock news on 1680 The Crow. I'm Yulia Swanova. Have a good day.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Welcome to For the Record on 1680 The Crow. I'm Zach Clark. My guest today is Karen Krobach, a seamstress who during COVID turned her eyes to patch jackets. How did you first get into creating patch jackets?
Well, I think for me it starts with getting into the metal community first. Obviously, the punk scene has their own kind of, battle jacket kind of an idea, but also the metal scene as well. So I started going to actual metal shows probably back as far as about 2017, though I've always been more into the heavier music and all of that. And I saw so many of the jackets, and I started collecting patches, which originally I had sewn onto my apron at work, working in a warehouse. Then the pandemic hit and everyone was in lockdown and I was living alone and I needed something to do. So I had an old kind of crappy jean jacket that I dyed a darker color. And I started taking all the patches off my apron from work since, it was COVID and I wasn't working there anymore, and started sewing them on. And then once shows came back, a buddy of mine and I started going to shows, and I picked up more patches, and then I realized that it was, such a fun pastime for me that I wanted to keep doing it, but I'd run out of room on my own jacket. So, I was expressing how sad I was about this, and my buddy goes, well, why don't you make me a jacket? So, I was like, absolutely, I will. And now it's just kind of a thing. It's such a good hobby for me now.
Metal is a genre that is often misunderstood. Is there anything you would like people to know about the metal community?
Oh my goodness. I love this question so much. Yes. We're not scary. I've had people see me coming down the street wearing my battle jacket and they cross the street. Like, I'm not gonna bite ya. I think really, it comes down to taste. Everybody has different opinions and music tastes. I think that's why there's so much diversity in the world of music. I personally think that metal is my favorite genre, but I consider myself a very eclectic person musically. So I can understand how, there are some people that are just like, hear it as screaming and yelling and it's just angry. And, I think if I were to, play devil's advocate, even though I'm actually on this side, I suppose, so it's not devil's advocate, but I think I would probably say something to the effect of, it's not angry, it's cathartic. And I think everyone has their own ways of dealing with things. I think everyone has their own, hardships and traumas and good times, bad times, whatever. I think for me, I hear the emotion and the meaning and the words behind all of the screaming and the whatever. Some subgenres of metal are very, very technical, very, very advanced musically, and just hearing the talent and the passion that these artists are able to express is often just so breathtaking. You hear a face-melting guitar solo or like a wicked drum solo or whatever, or there's even a few bands that have just such amazing vocalists. There's a lot of misconceptions about how, these vocalists must ruin their vocal cords. Not if they're doing it properly. And that takes years and years and years of practice and coaching and dedication and passion. And when, I'm listening to metal, it's great. It gets me through the day. But the live scene, and particularly the metal community in Vancouver, it's just incredible. It is so supportive, and I feel like it is inclusive, and I hardly feel safer than when I'm at a metal show, to be quite honest. Sure, there's mosh pits, but there's rules in mosh pits. If someone falls down, there's already 5 people helping them up the second they hit the ground. Like, it's very... I hate to sound cliche, but it sort of sounds like it sort of feels like an extended family in a way. We're part of the metal family, And I think it's just much more welcoming and whatnot than a lot of people think. People think that, metalheads are angry and scary, but honestly, I have seen more metalheads coming to shows in unicorn costumes than I can even count. So, I think it's one of those things where you don't judge a book by its cover.
And do you see a lot of other people wearing different battle jackets and patch jackets at shows like that?
Oh my gosh, so many. And they, gosh. I aspire to have a jacket as incredible as some of the ones I've seen in the metal community. Now, I think a lot of these people that I've seen wearing these jackets, they've been working on them for many, many, many years. And some of the craftsmanship is just so awesome. I think this is one of the things I also get out of going back to your previous question about making battle jackets is now when I look at other people's battle jackets, I appreciate what's gone into them. I appreciate, oh, I really like how you put this patch here next to this one, or I like the color thread you used, or, you know, things like that. And it gives me ideas for when I'm making other things, like, oh, that would look really great there. For example, there's wristbands that everyone gets from Armstrong Metal Fest every July. And my friend that I went with and we decided that we're going to start sewing those onto our battle jackets because there was someone we saw at a show once that had a ton of them. And we're like, oh, that's really cool. It's a really cool idea. So just, you know, incorporating all of that in. There's so, I mean, I saw someone with a battle trench coat one time, and I mean, he was an older gentleman, but he obviously had been going to live shows since he was younger than I am now, and he had been working on this forever. And it's really, really great to see that, and then to have my jacket appreciated as well. And you know, if I hear someone compliment my friend's jacket, I take it as a compliment too, because, you know, I did that. I made that. It's his, but I still put a lot of myself into it as well. So yeah, I mean, there's tons. It's not everybody has one, not everybody wants one, not everybody needs one, but they are kind of a staple for sure.
What creatively do you get out of making patch jackets?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. You know, I think for me, this piece goes back to my grandmother. She was a seamstress. She made wedding dresses for her profession, and she tried to teach me how to sew several times when I was a child. But, you know, as a child with ADHD, like I just couldn't really sit and pay attention long enough to actually have her teach me anything. So for me, when I'm making these jackets, a lot of it is, you know, just being connected to her. She is still with us, but lives far away now. So it's a way for me to connect with her and make her proud. But it's also for me, I'm very much someone that I need to always be doing something with my hands. You know, if I'm sitting in front of the TV, I'm painting, or I'm drawing, or I'm making battle jackets. So I think a lot of it is, you know, it helps with my mental health, and at the end of the day, I get something that looks really, really rad.
That was Karen Krobach talking about her love for creating patch jackets. I've been Zach Clark, and as always, you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, you know, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Siggi-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
This is sports on 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm Nicholas Poitras, and this is your sports news at 3:30. John Herdman takes in his first game in charge of Toronto FC on Wednesday when the cellar-dwelling MLS team plays at Charlotte FC. Herdman will watch from above for the next two games as interim coach Terry Dunfield runs the show from the sidelines. But Dunfield says while Herdman is off for the time being, his presence is being felt.
But what it's felt like is we're going into a fight tomorrow against Charlotte, and I've got a top crew behind me, and I feel like the team feels that as well. Training today, the boys were flying. There was so much energy and just a great buzz around the facility.
Herdman and his staff will take over in advance of the season finale October 21st. The Toronto Blue Jays kick off their American League wildcard playoff series with the Minnesota Twins this afternoon at Target Field in Minneapolis. Canadian Press reporter John Kennedy has more.
The Twins will host the best-of-3 series after winning the AL Central Division. The Blue Jays advanced to the playoffs by claiming the league's third and final wildcard spot. Toronto is making its second straight playoff appearance. The Jays hosted Seattle last fall after taking the first wildcard spot, but lost in 2 games to the Mariners. Jays right-hander Kevin Gausman gets the start for Game 1 against the Twins.
It's been a dream of mine since I got to the big leagues to get the ball for a postseason start. Obviously, Game 1 is the most important one.
The Blue Jays haven't advanced past the wild card round of the playoffs since 2016. John Kennedy, The Canadian Press.
Apart from the Blue Jays, there's still plenty of playoff action, with Texas at Tampa Bay, Arizona at Milwaukee, and Miami at Philadelphia. Defending champion Houston gets 5 days off until the division series start, as do Atlanta, Baltimore, and the Los Angeles Dodgers. There will be a lot of familiar faces in October, particularly in the National League. The speedy and strong Ronald Acuna Jr., the one and only member of the 40-70 club, will lead the Braves as they try to win their second title in 3 years. If you thought Major League Baseball games took less time to compete in 2023, you were correct. Associated Press reporter Bruce Morton has more.
Thanks to the pitch clock, the average time of a 9-inning game was 2 hours and 40 minutes. That's a 24-minute drop from the 2022 campaign. This season of change resulted in a spike in batting averages and the most stolen bases in 40 years. The average game time fell to a level last seen in 1985 after passing the 3-hour mark for the first time in 2016. I'm Bruce Morton.
Towards the NBA is making a new participation policy very clear. With a new player participation policy, the NBA has made it clear that healthy players should be on the court. No argument from the players who insist they aren't interested in sitting. Some don't like load management any more than the fans who wonder why some of the best athletes in the world so often need a night off. But they also want the league to understand that there are times when they have to listen to their bodies or their doctors. In those cases, they say no policy will cause them to take a risk. Plans to accommodate transgender swimmers at a World Cup meet scrapped because of lack of entries. World Aquatics says it received no entries for their open category events scheduled to take place at the World Cup starting Friday in Berlin. Swimming's governing body had previously banned transgender competitors from major events like the Olympics and World Championships, but it said it was committed to creating an open category for all swimmers when it first adopted its gender inclusion policy last year. The open category was supposed to make its debut on a pilot basis with 50-meter and 100-meter races. The Pacific Junior Hockey League's Port Coquitlam expansion team has made franchise history this weekend with the team's very first win. Our reporter Madison Buckingham has more details about this local hockey milestone.
The Port Coquitlam Trailblazers have ended their 0-6 drought after beating the Aldergrove Kodiaks 3-1 at their home arena on Friday night. Newest acquisition Caden Stanley opened up the scoring for the game, registering his first point as a Trailblazer. Port Coquitlam natives Marcus Jack and Robbie Tour take credit for the final 2 goals that punched in the team's win. Goaltender Evan Paul also contributed to the team's success, managing to save Aldergrove's 28 out of 29 shots on goal. Madison Buckingham, 1680 The Crow.
And that was your news for this half hour. I'm Nicholas Poitras, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Siggi-Kane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.